G'day. It's time to Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
G'day my lovelies and welcome back to another episode of Art of War Down Under. My name's Adam Camilleri as always, and this is going to be the second last Grotmas review episode that I do because I am done. I am cooked. Enough's enough. And once we get past this week and next week, we'll probably be out of relevant ones to do because I think I still have like the Votan and a couple of other ones that unfortunately are not really seeing much play, if any. So we're just going to be hitting the high points of what's left to review from Grotmas. And to that end, I have enlisted, I guess, seeing as the detachment we're doing first, enlisted my great mate, Rhys Cunningham, who represented Australia last year at the WTC and hopefully will be doing so again, and who has been absolutely crushing it with Guard in my local scene. Hello, mate. How you doing?
You're not too bad yourself, mate.
I'm pretty dang good. So,
Thanks
of course,
for having me again.
No, dude, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. We're going to be speed running our way through the Sisters Champions of Faith after we do Bridgehead Strike, because I know what you guys are here for, but I'm going to make you listen to the Bridgehead Strike, to the Army of Champions of Faith, before we are joined by the wonderful Brian Seipp to help us do Taktikal Brigade for the Orks. Now, I'm chucking in Champions of Faith because I've had about 3 of my patrons, because I said to the patrons, I'm only doing 1 or 2 more episodes on Grotmas, so cast your votes for which armies you want me to still do. And then I'll be literally doing like 6 of the ones that are voted for. And there's only about 4 that were voted for, but there was about 3 people who said they wanted Champions of Faith. So we're going to speed run through that as well. But of course, we're going to be doing Bridgehead first. Now, if anybody wants the second half of this podcast, do not go over to Art of War at Patreon. It's Art of War Down Under at Patreon if you want the second part of this, because I've had quite a few people reaching out to me and saying, yo, where's your podcast? I'm on the Patreon. And I'm like, are you on my Patreon? Because we did split the programs, we did split the streams. You know, Nick had to kind of figure out how much was his, how much was mine, etc., etc. So we split them a good year ago now. So up on my separate Patreon, that's Art of War Down Under. And in each part of this, we're going to be talking about how to build what we think is the best builds for this current detachment. And then, especially for Bridgehead and Taktikal Brigade, we're going to be unpacking how to beat it. And Rhys is going to help me do that because I plan to beat Rhys once again one day in the future. It's been a while.
Well, you still got over me in tournaments, but I think that was your only win. So
that's literally it. That's literally it. And you were green. You were a green boy back then. Now you're a stalwart man. So Bridgehead, mate. Jump again. What are your hot takes on this detachment?
So hot takes. Look, I don't know how many hot takes you can have with Bridgehead, but it's like exploring the Imperial agents. But with hot takes, I guess it's not even a hot take, but I don't think you really need artillery. Artillery was like a mainstay before we got I'm going to be talking post-codex, by the way. That's what I've been playtesting. I took to Uprising, I took the pre-codex with practicing with a new codex, and that showed a little bit. But yeah, like the army is missing some key factors, which is like armies that can position behind walls and then screen out behind there. So that's where the army kind of falls apart. Where your natural conclusion comes to is, well, the Rogal Dawn tank commanders are very good, and they are. They're fantastic, right? Like they're self-sufficient. They shoot a lot, so they even have an Overwatch threat themselves. They do solve one of the issues, which is holding the middle. You do get 2-up save, 18 wound, T11 body. T12 body. Yeah. Oh, is it 11 or 12? I can't remember. It's mainly irrelevant except for Lascan. But you get that to kind of pressure in the middle. You do want a second one, but, with deployments, deploying 2 Rogal Dawns is pretty difficult. So you're incentivized to reserve one. But then if you're reserving one, then you're not really punishing the middle, right? So you're coming in off the side.
You're tap dancing around, mate. Not once have you yet said that Scions are pretty much the best infantry unit in the game. I'm waiting for you to say
that's not a hot take.
That is ice cold take.
The ice cold take is that you want to run 3 command squads and you want to have 3 10-mans with them.
Literally.
Hot shot volley guns. absolute gas.
Yeah.
You take them on all of them, except for the one that you're going to be dropping down and ordering to take aim. So some melter guns is necessary for that. You can still arguably take the volley guns, but you're not getting that extra little bit of value.
Now,
but
I will say, if you do take this detachment, you are legally obliged to get It's Raining Men in your Spotify or Pandora or whatever you use, and on your go turn, you have to play it at full volume. You just do.
Yeah.
It's in the contract. It's in the fine print. I don't know what this fluff stuff says. It says Bridgehead Strike, and then it says right here under Bridgehead Strike, you must play It's Raining Men on your go turn. If you are deep striking more than 15 scions onto the table in one turn, It's Raining Men must be playing. It's there. Otherwise, you don't get any rules. You don't get your +1 to wound.
I feel like this falls under is it UKTC that's banned people from saying "wah"? I feel like this would be like fast.
Let's do it.
That.
Let's do it enough that they have to write it in there. That would be a win in and of itself. If it gets banned by the UKTC, that's a win by the community. All right.
Well, that's it. Right? That's what it really matters.
Let's jump into the detachment rules. This is only the best. Astra Militarum infantry in your army get reroll 1s. That's it. Just everybody in your army, if it's an infantry model, gets reroll 1s. And then Fire Zone Purge. Each time a Militarum Tempestus model from your army makes an attack in a turn in which it was set up on the battlefield from reserves or it disembarked from a transport, +1 to wound. And then lastly, in the keywords, if a Militarum Tempestus officer model from your army is your warlord, Tempestus Scions become battle line. And while such a unit is not battle shocked, they become OC2 or OC3 with a freaking banner. Yeah. This is...
You can have like 45 OC.
Correct.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, 45 OC is the max you'll do from Deep Strike. If you were to take a Stormlord and put 15 Scions in it and attach another... I don't know if there is another character you can attach.
You can bring in what's his Gaunt's Ghost as well, or just order yourself for an extra OC to get 60 OC as well.
It's true. You can order yourself. Jeez. But yeah, this is the gas, right? The rest of this, we talk about detachments as in like sometimes the detachment rule is just good enough and everything else is like maybe there's 1 or 2 good strats. This would be one of those things, except that there are bangers in the enhancements and the stratagems also, right?
I think that every one of the enhancements, I think 3 of the enhancements are very takeable.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll get to why one of them wasn't taken before, and where I think it's definitely worth looking at now as well.
All right, well, let's run through them. Bombast class Vox Array, 25 points. Militarum Tempestus Officer only, which is the same for all but the last one. Each time the bearer issues an order, if the bearer's unit contains one or more models equipped with a Master Vox, it can issue that order to up to 3 different regiment units instead of 1. So this is one of the biggest downsides of Militarum Tempestus commanders is they only issue 1 order. And yes, you can take the freaking staff or whatever it is to be able to receive another order, but you don't have the ability to issue to yourself. So this is a really good way of like beaming orders across the table. How do you feel about this one?
This one is fantastic. This one's the one, like everyone was taking it before. I personally was trying to avoid taking it before in the old detachment. I didn't think that you needed it without the reroll wounds. I didn't feel like the less shots on the plasma pistol was relevant for taking it for 35 points, where you could take 30 points, whatever it is, and where you could just take another unit.
Correct.
Of Catachans, like you're in that territory where you can just make some cuts, like some like very fine cuts to make those as well.
Yeah, because you're always in that, like, because when you look at this, you're pricing up. This is a 25-point upgrade, and then there's likely 2 more you really consider taking, and one of those is, the 30-point upgrade. And all of a sudden, you could just buy another squad of 10 guys instead of taking, 1 or 2 of these enhancements. The next one is Priority Drop Beacon, 30 points. It allows you to deep strike first turn. So you can deep strike in the reinforcement step of your first, second, or third movement phase, regardless of any mission rules. Absolutely bonkers. And more so for what it does to your opponent, for telling your opponent and how they have to play turn 1 and what this does to them psychologically. Because I don't think you've ever not taken this, but I've seen some people who say this isn't worth it for 30 points.
Yeah, look, I don't think... I think before it was more that if you were going to a singles event, just having those free games where you win, and then it's less mentally draining throughout the rest of the tournament because you'll play those opponents in the first few rounds.
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah. Get like that, hour and a half break, and then it's an hour lunch break, and you're sitting there for 2.5 hours, and your opponent's just finished their game. And then it's just like, cool, no worries, you're back into it. But now there's a very interesting thing about the priority drop weekend, which is that it gives the unit deep strike.
Correct.
Or being able to be set up with deep strike. So models that don't normally have deep strike will be gaining deep strike with that one, which is where this comes into it a lot now.
Exactly right. So that means you can attach things to scions that would normally kill them, would normally kill their best things. You normally have to put them into Taurox instead or some other transport. This gives whatever you attach, the deep strike ability. And we'll talk about a bit about that more in part 2, I think.
Yeah.
But next up is Shroud Projector for 15 points. Can't fire Overwatch. It's Tempestus officer only. Fantastic.
I love it. Look, it was my first one to go because I was always just as a little bit point shy. But with Eldar as like being around as well, like their Overwatch threat can be pretty nuts as well. It's nice to have that unit that can just drop in and not worry about it.
Yeah, you're talking mostly about Wind Riders, right? But hitting on 6s with sustained hits and 4 rerolls to hit. Yeah, yikes. It can be punishing. I mean, so one argument was said to me that Scions have so many ablative bodies before they get to the special weapons, but I think that was before the 6-up Feel No Pain went away. So I was like, they've got to shoot through this many 4-ups, 6-ups, could be in cover, could be this, could be that. But now that you regen guys with your medipacks, I think this is, bordering auto take.
Oh, yeah, especially for the points cost as well.
Yeah. All right, last one. Advanced Augury, 15 points. Infantry model only. So this is infantry officer only. So this was the only one that isn't Tempestus locked. After both players have deployed their army, select up to 3 regiment units from your army and redeploy them. When doing so, you can set them up into strategic reserve, even if you already have, regardless of how many you already have. And is this the one you're thinking is going up in your estimations?
No, I as I said, I think it's the priority drop. But this one here it's my one that you always look at, but it's like, why would I take it over the other 3? Like,
correct.
I just feel like the other 3 are just very good, where this one's good.
Yeah,
like you can do some really cool stuff with rattlings, and
straight up, every one of these is a banger. 15 points, 3 unit redeploy, amazing.
Yeah,
and you're probably not taking it. How funny!
It's sad, but very good.
How funny! All right, into the stratagems. So Bellicosa drop 1 CP, reinforcements deputy movement phase, 1 Astra Militarum infantry unit from your army that is running via deep strike, 6-inch deep strike. Of course, you can't charge afterwards. But, dude, 1 CP, 6-inch deep strike. Yeah, what were you going to freaking charge with anyway, you maniacs?
Exactly.
You love this strat. How good is it?
This strat gets used basically every turn. It gets you those angles that you need. Maybe not on turn 1 with priority drop, but they have to respect the threat of that. I played into Orks, was it like not last weekend, the weekend before? They didn't respect, or they thought they respected it, but they didn't respect it enough. Got the 6-inch in, and we just blew him off his home because they didn't have the screens up for a 6-inch deep strike.
Yep, that's it. Still just going to catch people. All right, firing hot is up next for 1 CP. It's in your shooting phase. 1 Militarum Tempestus or Casakin unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, improve the strength and armor penetration characteristics of hotshot las carbines, hotshot las guns, hotshot las pistols, hotshot masking rifles, hotshot volley guns, and sentry hotshot volley guns equipped by models in your unit by 1. And this is one of the key reasons why I think the volley gun beats out the grenade launcher for that, third or fourth special weapon in your command squad. Just depends if you're taking the medipack or the banner or either, because I think there's an argument for all of those. How do you feel about this, mate? And is this just like the best thing since sliced bread?
Look, this one's fantastic as well. Like it hits so many breakpoints. There's so many like T6, T7, like especially T6 models, like that are just running around. And if you're firing the normal hotshot las, wounding them on 5s. Doesn't feel great even with the rerolls. But if you're bumping that up to winning on 4s with rerolls, at AP2 as well, and we'll get to another stratagem later where this combos with, but it's very solid.
I totally agree. I also like this because after the drop turn, or if your opponent's good enough to deny you a good drop turn, this will keep your scions doing something because if this didn't exist, your opponent could just zone you out, wait for you to all hit the board with nonsense units, and then your army is way less threatening. It's just a bunch of special weapons with, the hotshot las guns do diddly squat against the vast majority of opponents, especially opponents who have cover. Like they do nothing. They might as well be regular las guns. This keeps them good. This keeps them good turn after turn. All right, fire and relocate is in your shooting phase for 1 CP. 1 Astra Militarum unit that isn't Titanic from your army to the phase. Unit is eligible to shoot a turn in which it advanced. So funny that they decided to put one of the best portions of the Hammer of the Emperor
into
this one.
Yeah.
How fun, because you can advance and shoot your Rogue of Dawn tank commanders. Hilarious.
That's it. That's what makes it takeable in the army. Now, starting 1 Rogue of Dawn onto the board and being able to just advance and shoot it, you get those angles. You can remove it if you want to. But yeah, it does conflict a little bit. But yeah, no, it's good because you are pretty CP hungry, and with being in the air, we'll get to it later.
And then the fact is, we can talk about it now. The fact is, you have to take a Tempestus officer as your warlord, so it means you cannot take Lord Solar because Lord Solar has to be your warlord. Otherwise, you don't get battle line, you don't get the extra OC. So this is a Lord Solarless detachment. It's a nombo if you do take him, like it's a massive nombo. And so because of that, you find yourself actually having CP issues in this. Like you just can't do it all.
Well, Creed fixes that. She's your pseudo warlord, but she does not help with the Rogue of Dawn, unfortunately. So
correct. All right, servo designators is up next. 1 CP. Your shooting phase just after an Astra Militarum unit from your army is shot. That Astra Militarum infantry unit. Select 1 enemy unit hit by 1 or more of those attacks that is visible to your unit. Until the end of the phase, that enemy unit cannot have the benefit of cover. Lol. Honestly, having that and the +1 AP, +1 strength, OTT. They did not need both. They did not need both.
They didn't. You don't know what it's like until you just drop down like a 5-man with just a hotshot volley, and that picks off some that the 6-inch deep strike has gone near, and then you just strip their cover. Then you +1 AP, +1 strength. That
disgusting. They really, and everything has +1 to wound as well, and roll 1s innately. Hilarious. So you can just order yourself to be +1 to hit. Oh, cool. You can have a second order because you've got a command rod. Cool. We're rapid fire as well. This is revolting. All right, aerial extraction is up next, and this is the stinker. This is the stinker. 1 CP, end of your opponent's flight phase. 1 Valkyrie unit, because we all know we're taking those. What an auto take that unit is. That is not within engagement range of 1 of enemy units, and 1 Astra Militarum unit from your army that has the deep strike ability and is not within engagement range of 1 of enemy units. Remove your unit from the battlefield and place it into strat reserve. So you can beam yourself back up. And cool. The Valkyrie's there for some reason. Yay! How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, look. This one is my favorite. This one's the get back up. But I don't know why it mentioned it could not mention Valkyrie. Like
the fact is that the Valkyrie doesn't get anything from this detachment. Literally nothing. But they just hand-fisted it.
Valkyrie used to be able to drop your scions off as you flew over. I don't know if it still can, but I don't know. I haven't read the Valkyrie.
I wouldn't care to look because it costs more than the unit of 10 scions.
Yeah, I value my mental health, so I'm not going to read the Valkyrie.
And it's such a shame. Valks are freaking cool, dude.
They're so such cool. A cool model, dude. Yeah.
I have not played one since the middle of 7th edition, and that's because I was a meme lord. All right. On my position is unnecessarily busted. 1 CP at the end of your opponent's fight phase. 1 regiment infantry unit from your army that is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within engagement range of your unit. On a 2+, that enemy unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. Then your unit suffers 3d3. This is so janky. Sorry, go.
It was so much better when you could run the Krieg blobs, the 20 mans with the 5 I feel no pain.
5 I feel no pain. Yeah,
it's still good.
It's still really good. So good.
You can just. It's not even. You don't care how much damage you do yourself, and you don't really care about how much damage you do to them. The fact that you're pulling yourself out of combat, is what matters.
Yep.
That's all that you care about. You would lose 9 dudes out of your command squad if they're just tagging you with a tank and didn't kill anyone. You would lose 9 dudes at maximum loss value to you just to pull yourself out of combat.
Because there's no fallback and do anything in this detachment. There's no fallback and shoot. There's no fallback and charge. Not that you would want to fall back and charge, but this is it. This is the way that you do that while also very likely taking a chunk out of your opponent and making your life easier once you get out as well. It's an incredible stratagem that I think should be D3 models and 2D3 to you rather than D6 and 3D6. This 1 CP strat, I believe, has the highest potential ceiling for mortal wounds in the game.
It does, technically. I don't know what they're... Look, if we had a unit that prevented fallbacks, oh boy, that would be gas. But it is good, though. It doesn't need to be better than what it is. It fulfills its role. Like, obviously, if it was just fallback shoot, we would probably take that. But this also allows you to pull out of combat and then jump back up into reserves.
Correct. And that's what's huge about it. You kill yourself up, you kill yourself out of combat, and then you 1 CP aerial extraction, and then you deep strike down, get your pluses and all your goodness, all your bonuses are active again. It's extremely powerful. And
then you also res D3 guys with your medbacks.
Yep. Oh my god. Suffice to say, it is hard. It is hard to say that Bridgehead isn't the best Grotmas detachment. I think there's one detachment that is arguable that did more for its army than what Bridgehead did for Guard, because Guard was already in a very good place. And it's going to be the last one we do on this episode, because I've got a feeling Tactical Brigade is the only one you could argue did more for Orks than Bridgehead did for Guard. Even though I do believe Bridgehead is S tier and Tactical Brigade is probably A+ tier. So, but that's just Guard being, I believe, better than Orks at the game at the moment.
Yeah, look, if there's an army I don't really want to play, it's probably Tactical. I feel like it does have a pretty good matchup into Guard. It's just the trucks, right? Like, you do still struggle with that, deboating them, unless you want to commit like a full command squad and just pray that, your split fire picks up 3 trucks, which is possible. It can do it. It's not entirely impossible. Their toughnesses aren't great into your volley guns and with the +1 strength.
+1 strength, yeah.
So you're on AP2. You can definitely do it. It's just that, I would say that Tactical, probably in a glow up sense, Orks Tactical is. I would also say is probably S tier, but I'd still put Bridgehead above.
Yeah, I think Bridgehead is likely the best army in the game right now, or equal best if you really wanted to get into it. I'm sure there's, depending on whatever meta you're in. So that's the thing, right? Yeah, because some Space Marines armies that are comparable, some like A tier, A+ tier, possibly S tier Space Marine detachments and whatever builds are like as good as Guard into the rest of the meta. But man, Bridgehead smashes Marines. Smashes them. So for me, this is literally, until we find out how good Eldar is, I believe Bridgehead's the best army in the game. Do you agree?
It's definitely possible. Look, it does have weak counters, which I was able to find, but look, they're not common though. So.
And we'll go over and talk about it on part 2, because they're not things that you commonly find in the meta at the moment. You have to build them into your list, and then probably they aren't good into a bunch of other matchups. So it's just a lot of risk reward for people out there. All right, so out of 10 as a Guard player, how happy were you with this detachment?
Easily a 10. I think last time I was on this show, you asked us what's the best faction that no one's playing, and this was before the Grotmas detachments were announced, and I mentioned just spamming Scions, and that was with just lethal and sustained.
Straight up, you and me were already on the Scion train. Like, I was already trying to get my hands on as many as I could. Like, I have 45 right now. I have 45, and I just sold you 20, and I still have 45.
That's a lot of Scions.
That's a lot of Scions. Because even in the combined arms, the combined regiment, the Scions were just gas. They were everything you needed, because you needed dynamic elements, and because we were dropping the Rough Riders, we'd lost to Bulgrin. We needed something that was going to reach out and apply pressure and psychologically mess with my opponent. That wasn't just Unga Bunga, Lehman Russ. And Scions were everything.
Yep, 100%.
All right. That is us done for this part. We're going to go over and record a part 2 to this. But canonically, you're about to hear this same gentleman, Rhys, and myself discuss the Champions of Faith, the Adeptus Sororitas Grotmas Detachment. Hopefully you'll stick around for that. We're going to leave a break right here. And welcome back, Rhys. It's only been a moment since people, whatever.
Literally a moment.
Literally a moment. And guess what? It's been a moment for us as well, because all we did was hold our breath for 20 seconds and we started talking again. Champions of freaking Faith, my man. This is a detachment that I believe is built well, but the nerfs that Sisters copped before its release have meant this thing kind of doesn't have the legs to fly, if that makes sense.
It makes me very sad, especially with the pun there as well, because you really want those flying units, and I don't know where you find the points for them.
That's correct, my man. So what are your hot takes on Champions of Faith?
I actually think that they're a lot better than what people give them credit for. Independent host detachment, just one of the regular ones, you could make the super unit of Repentia. With the difference is obviously you can get crit 5s, but the main thing was that you can give your Repentia lethal and sustained. You can still do that here. Is only on 6s, but with full rerolls, you can get those Repentia units hitting pretty hard. Obviously
plus
not
one to move
super same, but
plus one to move as well isn't nothing either. It's not insane, but it's nice.
Yeah, well, they're just coming out of rhinos, right, as they usually do, but like that unit made me want to test it. Unfortunately, you just don't have the miracle dice to make it work anymore, which is unfortunate. As I've been saying to a lot of people, I would trade the 1 miracle dice per turn for 3 1s in that detachment. Just having 3 1s.
Absolutely. Yeah,
just to turn that detachment on.
Yeah, my fix to Sisters. The one I was shouting at people instead of what they did was to let them have a bank of miracle dice. So depending on the battle round, you can have this many. You're allowed to have a bank of this many. Probably starts at like 2 or 3. But you pretty much always have them. You'd always have like minimum 2 or 3 at all times, and then you can cycle out which numbers you have as you generate more, but you can never have more than your bank. Because what I was finding is like by the end of turn 3, your opponent just like you literally you sir, would you just have every miracle dice possible? You would never not be able to do like the 2 or 3 things you needed to guarantee do, because you'd have infinity miracle dice to throw at the problem. And that was the issue, right? There was nothing that Sisters could not do. There was nothing that Sisters could not accomplish, no matter how big a problem you gave them to solve. Like literally, they could throw miracle dice at it and the problem would go away.
Well, you would just get to board states where it was like simplified, and then you'll just win those simplified board states because you get to control your dice rolls for the rest of the game.
Correct. Yeah, you control your variants. All right. The detachment rule is righteous purpose. In your command phase, you can discard up to 3 miracle dice. We're seeing the problem. For each discarded, you can select up to 1 Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit is righteous. While a unit is righteous, it gets +1 move. It improves the leadership characteristic of models in that unit by 1. And if it is a Battle Sister squad, Celestin Sacristan squad, or Paragon Warsuit squad, it improves the Ballistic skill and weapon skill by 1 also. And then the keyword changes here is that while Celestian Sacristant unit from your army is not Battle Shock, +1 OC. I really think they could have gotten away with giving them Battle Line as well, as long as they, like you say, that something must be a Warlord, like it must be Woven Vile and or a Canoness or some crap. To give them battle line, because I don't think up to 6 units of Sacrostants would have broken anybody's minds.
I don't think anyone would be taking 6 units of Sacrostants.
Correct. Just a little cherry though. Just give them a little cherry. How do you feel about this detachment rule?
Experiment it. Look, the detachment rule is fine. I feel like the righteous buffs are more for the stratagems than it is for the effects that you get, but we'll obviously get into that.
I mean, cool. You can discard up to 3 miracle dice. More than most likely, this is once a turn. This is a once a turn.
Yeah.
1 unit from your army is righteous. That's it. That's literally from where Sisters are right now until things change. If they change, that's what this rule is. You can do up to 3. I don't know whenever you're gonna. I don't know anytime you can.
I don't know. Like I think you can get away with 2. But look, with the cheap units going as well with the book. You don't have those way of generating because you only generate 1 if
1 per
3
phase.
things die.
Correct.
Exactly.
One thing I'll ask you, and this will be Adam putting on his layman's hat for people at home. It says select 1 Adeptus Sorority unit from your army. It doesn't say on the battlefield. Does that mean I can or cannot select a unit that's in a transport?
You should be able to select 1 in a transport. Normally it specifies if it has to be on the battlefield.
Correct.
Like they specifically changed the corn one to be on the battlefield, I think.
Exactly right. So that's just for people at home if you were thinking or curious. All right, Triptych of Judgment for 15 points. Adeptus Sororitas model only. Each time model in the Barbarian's unit makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to that attack's ballistic skill, weapon skill, or any or all hit modifiers, or modifiers to the hit roll. 15 points is not bad, but I'm not sure this is one you would take.
The Saracens don't hit that hard. And what else are you joining? It's kind of it's sad. Like
minus ones to hit do hurt Repentia, and I feel like this is a unit. This is an army where you may take one unit of 10 Repentia. Would this be something you could attach to them? Because minus one to hit in combat
can't. I think the only characters that could join were with the enhancement. An independent host for Repentia specifically.
Oh, because yes, they specifically.
Arcos can have creatures, but
That's not it. Because that's literally what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of you could join stuff through Repentia because literally the penitent host. But you are correct, mate. There was a special thing that let him. I don't know where this finds any value.
I don't know. Like you can do it for Arcos, but
big unit of Retributors, I
guess, but then you take a unit of 5. The Retributors can't be 10, so it's super mid, maybe a little bit below mid.
And it's missing the one thing that I want to see on this, which is the wound roll. You could delete all of this and just give me ignore next to wound, and it would be better than what it is now. Because that's
damage.
Even
just damage modifiers,
better than ignoring all the hit rolls stuff. All right, Mark of Devotion for 30 points. Adeptus Sororita model only. Add 1 to the task characteristic of the bear's melee weapons. While the bear's unit is righteous, add 2 to the attacks and add 1 to the damage. I mean, it's 30 points, and I don't see why it is 30 points. But I think this is not bad. I think it's not bad. It's too expensive though, but I think it's not bad.
I think if you're going to run one of the enhancements, this one would probably be up there. Like you could just run like a killer unit of Saracens.
Exactly right. With
that character. Yeah, but every Sisters detachment has this kind of an equivalent of this. And this one's probably not the best one. So
is it better on a Canoness or a Palatine?
Well, I'm a bit of I don't want to say the word, but the S word for a Palatine. But I love the Palatine.
Fair. All right. Eyes of the Oracle. I didn't know this was in the Matrix. 10 points. Adeptus Sororitas only. The bearer's melee weapons have precision. Each time the bearer's unit destroys an enemy character model, you gain 1 CP. Sure, 10 points if you've got 10 points left. Otherwise, no.
Yeah, I think it's Palatine has precision. No, it's still heroic. Yeah, I can't remember which one. It's been a while, but on the Palatine with like the dev wounds after you've successfully wounded. But again, the Palatine requires you to discard a miracle dice for that ability, and I just don't know where you're getting them from. It's so close. It's so close.
It is. Sanctified Amulets for 25 points. Enemy units that are set up on reserves cannot be set up within 12. So the Infiltrator Aura, which I don't hate, because one of the things, it's like a necessary evil. 25 points is a bit rough, because it's not incalculable that you want to take like 55 points of enhancements. I would take this over the Mark of Devotion, by the way, because your army doesn't have screens anymore. Your stuff is so expensive, you don't have screens. So just being able to have, exactly right. You don't have units to use as screens. So just having like your expansion objective or your home objective safe from Deep Strike feels pretty good.
It does. It's pretty pricey. I don't know if you just want to do the upgrade for a Castigator to a Exorcist, just to just
do the same thing.
Do essentially the same thing. You got some extra guns, I guess. Obviously, you're firing indirect. The enhancers are definitely nothing to write home about, but they're fine.
They're fine. Yep. All right. Shield of Denial is 1 CP any phase after a mortal wound is allocated. End of the phase, your models in your unit have a 6-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. If you're righteous, you have a 5-up feel no pain. I really, really, golly gosh, wish this was one better. If it's a 5-up on everybody, 4-up on your righteous unit. Because as it sits right now, you're never going to use this on the non-righteous unit. And if your opponent knows about this, they never throw the grenade at the righteous unit. They just kill them. In 1 million other ways.
Other factions just have this feel no pain for regular attacks, just not just mortals.
Yes, some have just 5-up feel no pain on demand. I mean, Custodians just have 1 CP 5-up feel no pain. against
Yeah.
mortals with no terms and conditions. I don't understand why this one isn't 5 up, and then the rider gives you a 4 up for the righteous unit. So this is just one worse than it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't. And then you've also, like, since you're setting up the righteous tokens, you're doing it in your turn as well.
Yeah.
So they know which ones are righteous. And as we discussed earlier, you're probably going to have 1 or 2 of those.
Exactly right.
Which these will all be, like, we'll get to it eventually, but they're all going to be dumped into one specific unit. So.
Correct. All right. Suffer not the unfaithful for 1 CP. It's in your shooting phase or the fight phase. 1 Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army that is righteous and has not been selected to shoot or fight. Select either lethal or sustained hits 1. Until the end of the phase, weapons equipped on models in unit have the selected ability. This one is genuinely not bad, but because there is 2 units in particular, right? You already talked about the Repentia. Now tell me about Val and her super guns.
Well, Val just this detachment is just make Val incredibly good, and she's already incredibly good in an army that has just been pointed into oblivion. But she's just she's insane with sustains with full rerolls. Like, even if you want lethals, like, it's incredible. This one strat makes me want to play this detachment, and it also gives me an excuse to play my Repentia again. Obviously being able to give Repentia the lethal and sustain, but with Morven, oh man,
yeah, baby, yeah. This detachment so far reads to me is everybody behind Morven, as in, like, Morven, freaking carry me to the finish line.
How long can you keep Morven alive is basically the game plan.
All right. To the Heart of Heresy, 1 CP, fight phase. 1 sorority student from your army has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the turn, improve the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped on models in your unit by 1. If your unit is righteous, improve the AP by 1 as well. 1 CP plus 1 strength plus 1 AP. We just talked about another detachment that had exactly the same thing, essentially, which was in the shooting phase, which was much better. But is this any good? Because I think this is pretty good. I think this is the second best.
I think it's good. And
I think it's good.
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know. It depends how you want to play it. But you can also, I believe, you can do this if you make Arcos righteous. Their problem's always been the no AP.
No AP.
So AP 1 on them. I remember toying around with the Triumph and in Penitent Host, giving them AP in melee with one of her abilities, but obviously you can't take her anymore. But like, Arco has become legitimately good with this, and even improving the AP of your Repentia as well.
Yeah, and this is the one that makes me think I could make at least 1 unit of Sacrosan's work, right?
Yeah,
because Sacrosan's actually will slap with this buff.
Yeah, because they're isn't their damage 2 weapons only AP 1, I think, off the top of my head. I haven't looked at them in a while, but yeah, that actually makes them, like, relatively decent.
I will tell you about them literally right now. So they have Anointed Halberd, which already has sustained hits, so you could go sustained and lethal if you want. 3 attacks at 5-2-1, or the Hallowed Mace, which already has lethal, so you could give them sustained at 4-1-2. So that'd be 5-2-2 with 3 attacks.
Which is
30 attacks at 5-2-2. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I think that makes at least 1 unit of Sacrosan's very viable. All right, Path of the Righteous, 1 CP fight phase, 1 Adeptus Sorority unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Pile in consolidate 6 inches instead of 3. When doing so, if your unit is righteous, it does not need to end that move closer to the closest enemy model, provided it ends that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. Very interesting. Very, very cool. I like this a lot.
This is very good, especially with, like, Arcos. Like, they're not as tough as they used to be. But coming out of a Rhino, and then killing what you need to kill with the 1 AP1, and then, piling in 6 and tagging, like, 4 of their units, they're probably just going to pull back. But that's 4 units out of commission.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right.
That's good. Like, the unit's still hexy, but yeah.
In the shooting, the gunline matchups, this is absolutely baller. Like, this is excellent.
It is. Like armies like Tau just don't do anything to this. Like, strat, like, you can just kind of tag them in, like, even is it Ironstorm? They struggle with. I think they have a fallback one fallback. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
an enhancement,
Only one.
and it's only used on one, and the techie has to be in range, and that's if they took it, right? Because all those enhancements are very XE now as well. So yeah, it's very powerful. This next one is not a Bastion of Faith for 1 CP. Fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Sacrosanct unit from your army that was selected as a target of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. In addition, if your unit is righteous, you can select 1 other Sacrosanct unit from your army that is not battle shocked and is within 6 inches of that unit. Until the end of the phase, that's also -1 to hit. So you get -1 to hit for 1 CP, and you can beam it to another Sacrosanct unit for -1 for one -1 to hit. Look, Sacrosancts are already -1 to wound if they're led by a character. I mean, so -1 to hit, -1 to wound could be a thing. I'm pretty convinced.
There's already a character that already gives you -1 to hit, so I think you can have -1 to hit and -1 to wound anyway.
I'm pretty convinced
this is before.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It wasn't good enough to do before. I'm pretty sure this is the worst enhancement, the worst stratagem. Sorry.
Yeah, hands down.
Arguably, Shield of Denial is worse unless you're playing against T-Suns, in which case Shield of Denial is amazing. So you're giving Morven Val a 5-up versus Magnus. This sounds good.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
No, that's not bad. All right, Indefatigable Dedication. 1 CP, you move in phase just after an Adept destroyed unit from your army falls back. You are able to shoot in a turn in which you fell back. If you are righteous, you can shoot and charge in a turn in which you fell back. This is not the worst thing in the world, and the T's and C's on it are pretty good. But I do find that what has the staying power to get hit by like your opponent's aggressive units and not be dead in like
this is just to facilitate Morven again. You can just you just bringing her into a safe spot where she can start taking over the board like she used to. You don't have the same amount of units you used to like maintain the other part of the board. But this allows her to act like she used to as well, because before the new book she had this ability with the Paragons, instead of +1 hit and wound. But yeah, she loves this one though. Like this allows you in those if you're taking swords and you're not able to kill like the big thing that you thought you were able to kill, but they're not hitting you back very hard, and you're just kind of locked there, or they just try and bog you down with like chaff models that you don't have enough attacks to kill. This allows you to just get around those and just walk around and then shoot them on your way out with the heavy bolter and her storm bolter that has 2d6 blast, and then she just fires the rest of her guns where she wants, then charges something else and like carries on about her day.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, that brings us to the end of the review of Champions of Faith, my man. All right, out of 10 as a Sisters player, how happy are you with this attachment?
Look, and it's not even the detachment's fault. It's hard to disassociate myself with the nerfs that they received.
Yeah, correct.
Look, if they didn't nerf Sisters how they did, I'd say a 6. I'd still say it's worse than what we had before. But with the nerfs as well, it's honestly a 2.
Correct.
You just don't have the miracle dice to facilitate it.
You can't juice up your army. You cannot juice up your army, and it's caused like so. My issue is so. Let's say the Zinch detachment, they got given a whole mechanic, a whole resource mechanic in order to facilitate their detachment. Okay, this should have been so if you kill a unit in the shooting phase, you get a righteous token. If you kill a unit in the fight phase, you get a righteous token. So you start your turn, the next turn, with 2 righteous tokens and can therefore make 2 things righteous. And let's say you always start with 1. You start every turn with 1 righteous token. And then you earn them by getting kills and doing stuff. And by only getting kills.
I don't even think it would be broken if they even remained righteous after they kill a unit, to be honest.
Like, they become righteous. Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's fair. And then you can make...
doesn't seem broken to me.
Nah. I mean, I do understand that they wouldn't want to give another resource mechanic to another army that already has a resource mechanic. When everybody has command points already, then this would be a 3 resource mechanic army for people to try and keep track of. So there is that. But the way this is worded, you are giving up so much of your juice to use this detachment rule. To have a detachment rule, you have to give up and use the best thing in your army, which is your miracle dice. And so for me,
you're giving up your army rule for a detachment rule.
Correct. This is a downgrade. This is a nombo. This is an inbuilt nombo. If you had infinity miracle dice, absolutely this thing could fly. But even if you had only a few less, if they only slightly nerfed you last time, I still don't think this thing could go. So yeah, I'm with you. This is a 2 or 3 out of 10. And all right, the best players in the world playing the best possible Champions of Faith list. Where do you think they make it in the tier list? D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, D or S tier?
Probably C tier. You'd still probably beat those bottom tier factions, but even now, the game doesn't even have that many bottom tier factions. I don't even know what you're beating.
Dude, you say that. Sisters is the bottom tier faction. They have the worst win rate in the game right now, outside of the things that we don't track. But yeah, I don't know what this beats. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. You're kind of just doing everything. It's a half-assed faction at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just
so let's do a fun thing. So there's the 4 worst Grotmas detachments I think people have agreed upon, and the other 3, of which this one might be one, is the the T-Sons detachment, which is the Zangor detachment, which is absolutely
doesn't work.
The Eldar one, the Armored Warhost, which just doesn't actually do enough for tanks. It's a tank detachment that doesn't do anything for tanks. And the other one is the Votan detachment. Now, the Votan detachment actually, I think, is better than the bunch, but the fact is that they buffed the index detachment so much that thing is just 3 times better than the other one. The Votan detachment is fine. Is this the worst detachment we got from Grotmas? Or do you think the Eldar or the T-Sons one is worse?
I would go the best one out of those 3 is Eldar, then I'll put Sisters, then I'll put Zinj.
I 100% agree, mate. T-Sons, the worst. Congratulations, T-Sons players. You win. You are the winner of the worst detachment in Grotmas.
They have the right to complain.
They do. We will once again give you back the right to complain. We did take it away for a while. But dude,
they had 2 years of that, so that's fine.
That's correct. And look, the best players in the world are still doing great with T-Sons. It's just so much harder now. And they are very much where Sisters are. Where this detachment is yo, Magnus, carry me, sir. Carry me all the way. The crutch.
There's a common theme amongst this, so...
Yeah, is get a big old crutch and see how far it can take you. But anyway, man, that's going to finish us up for this segment. Please stay tuned, everybody. I'll be back with Brian Seipp to review the Tactical Brigade for Orks. But we're going to go and record both of our Part 2's segments. We're going to write one list for Champions of Faith. We're going to write one list. But we are going to discuss all the ins and outs of how to wield your Bridgehead Strikeforce and do as much as we can to weaponize and armor everybody out there to what they can do versus Bridgehead, because I know that's most of what my patrons have asked me. How do I not die first guard? And so we will do a lot of effort into that. So, Rhys, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I didn't give you a chance to plug in the previous segment, but is there anything you'd like to mention or plug right now?
No, I'm good. I'm pretty independent. I just do a little bit of coaching, and but yeah, no, it's all good.
Beautiful, mate. Thank you so much again for coming on, and we'll see you soon, guys. G'day, everybody, and we are back with your final segment for today's episode. I am joined by the wonderful Brian Seipp. Hello, mate.
Hey, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you on, and we are here to disseminate what has been touted as the best Grotmas detachment, as in the detachment that did the most for its respective faction than any other, because I believe I stand by that statement. I think that Tactical Brigade did more for Orks than any other Grotmas detachment did for its other respective parent faction.
Would you say Demons? But that's the only other exception.
Yes, I think Demons is the only one that's arguable. But the only thing about the Slaanesh Demons is that it's divisible by 4 because they got 4 detachments. So it's hard to say that they're.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But yeah, that is a contender for sure. But my man, hot takes on this Tactical Brigade. Jumping straight in, what are your thoughts? How freaking chuffed were you?
Dude, this is such a cool detachment. One of the things that have been plaguing Orks for a while is is that their shooting has just not existed. And when you have taken it, it's been this like perfunctory thing that maybe it has like a little bit of damage, maybe pick on some chaff units, you don't have to commit whole assets in, maybe kill some screens, nothing serious. But now, you're not playing good shooting for Orks. You're playing flat, good shooting. Like it is just good. And that is awesome. And that's also coming, on the heels of not only this detachment, but also these two new data sheets, one of which is shooting for tank bus is getting redone, which provides, it's important context for the detachment being so good as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. So jumping into the review, I'm going to be doing the rating. Brian will be doing the expert analysis. But the first one up is listen here. So this is their orders mechanic. So once per battle round in your command phase, or after being set up on the battlefield in your movement phase, each boss Snickrot, mech, or war boss model in your army can issue tactical abilities. And these are just orders. To do so, select one of the two tactical abilities below. So one or two of the tactical abilities below, and select one friendly Orks unit within 6 of that model to issue that order to. If you selected two orders for that model, must take a leadership test. If it's failed, the selected unit suffers D3 mortal wounds as your boss guy punches them in the face and tells them that they must do what it said. Until the start of your next command phase, the selected unit is affected by those tactics. A unit cannot have tactics issued to it in this way more than once per battle round. Tactical abilities can not be used onto battle shock units, and if a unit affected by tactics becomes battle shocked, all tactics fall off. So same as all the order conditions that Guard have. There are 4 of these. The first one is reroll charges. Nice. Next one is +1 strength of melee weapons. The next one is infantry and mounted models that aren't meganobs in this unit have stealth, and each time a ranged attack targets this unit, those models have the benefit of cover. And then lastly, each time, and this is the big one, infantry or mounted model in the unit makes an ranged attack +1 to the hit roll. And then lastly, the keyword riders here is Stormboys from this army are battle line. They don't get the extra OC, which I found was interesting because, the Guard, Bridgehead gets extra OC. There's a couple of others that get extra OC. But this one does not. Do you think that's something that's missing from this attachment, if anything?
I think that if Stormboys were OC2 and you had 10 OC for 65 points that could always fall back against the charge, that would probably be a problem. So as a man who owns 60 Stormboys, because they used to be units of 20, I'm just happy that I can play 60 Stormboys again, right? I guess it's just pretty cool that they have that. That line doesn't matters in some missions. It doesn't matter as much as maybe it did before the secret mission change, but it's still somewhat relevant, and I think it's pretty cool that you can take more than 3 small units, especially when you get into some of these stratagems and some of them synergize well there. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. What about the rest of the detachment rule? This is where it's big, right? Because giving the +1 to hit on demand, and then having a bunch of other mechanics get +1 ballistic skill, etc., letting you actually have a shooting portion of your army is huge. And they got this rider, like in addition, like over and above Guard orders, you get 2. You can actually just have 2 anytime you issue them, and it's just a leadership check away. And then a lot of the time, you've got multi-wound models you're using this on, so there's even a chance you don't punch anyone to death.
The reality I've seen playing out is that a bunch of units pick up like one order that needs it, but then like your backfield units want to pick up kind of the +1 to hit, as well as stealth and cover. So what usually ends up happening is kind of the turn where your guys are coming out. You play it like you would an Ork army where you're having this big wog turn. A lot of your melee units, which are going to be pretty close to the enemy anyway, assuming you position correctly, are picking up stealth and cover. And then your shooting units are picking up +1 to hit, as well as stealth and cover. So they're the ones doing the double orders. And some of those key units are tank busters, and tank busters come with a guy that has a 12-inch pistol that often doesn't activate and has a hammer, which means that even if you do 3 mortal wounds to yourself, you don't actually lose any output on that first double order turn.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Exactly right. And when you attach the big mech, he's leadership 6, yeah?
No, the mech's are leadership 7, so it is a decision after the point.
Yeah, it is a 50-50.
Yeah, so you do fail at a decent amount of times. The war bosses are leadership 6, but a lot of times the war bosses are getting attached to things that don't really need it, like Brigade Boys, for example, a thing that I've been particularly using, and they already have reroll charges, right? So they don't need that order. They're anti-monster, anti-vehicle force. They don't really need strength. Sometimes you do it if you want to get to a tipping point in infantry, but usually it's like the stealth and cover. And if your opponent doesn't have shooting, sometimes I get out and I just order somebody else, right? It doesn't even get
correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. So there are a bunch of units that these things don't affect. I suppose that's good because it gives you I talk about order economy a lot. Is that something you got to factor in when you're building this list, or is it just intuitive?
I think that you can, but a lot of orc units want to be led anyway, right? And so the shooting ones are going to be led by mechs, just because you get additional output in the form of the SAG, or the enhancement will come up later in the form of the flash kits. And those guys can issue orders to their own unit, and that's kind of what plays out. And then a lot of the melee assets want to have war balls attached because war bosses are the best. So you want to, and they're usually ordering to themselves as well. So you can do some other things. Like you can take there's a 45-point mech. He's kind of interesting. A little loan up guy that lets you give +1 to a vehicle to hit, which is pretty cool. The more shooting you have, making vehicles shoot out a firing deck with 4s is pretty cool. And then you have an extra order that can be given out to somebody else, which is nice. And so you do have some places we can put extra orders, but I think oftentimes though, the leaders are issuing orders to kind of their own unit.
Their own units. Yeah. All right, jumping into the enhancements. First up is Squad Leader for 15 points. Warboss model only. During the declared battle formation step, the bearer can be attached to commandos. While leading a commandos unit, it has the infiltrators and stealth abilities. So 15 points to chuck a warboss in with your commandos. Feels pretty cute, man. But not something I've seen done. I've not seen it done a single time, which is hilarious.
It's actually I've been playing around with this a little bit because there's some really cool things you can do. So importantly, it just says warboss, right? And so one of the memes that came out when this first got released was people were talking about putting like a squigosaur into a commando unit, which is cute, but I don't think it's actually that good. But one thing that I have been playing with is you have a commando unit and then you put a beast boss with them.
Ooh, yeah.
With the infiltrate, and that's actually kind of interesting because now you have a unit which can pretty much wog itself, right? You give yourself the +1 strength. You can use the distraction got for the invuln save, and now you have a unit that can't be overwatched that also can just like flip a vehicle upside down for free.
Yeah,
and
correct.
You also don't really need that extra attack to do so. So that's pretty cool, and I do like that. It's a little on the expensive side, but it's definitely like something which I was experimenting with, which is kind of neat.
All right, next up we have Mech Captain, arguably the best one or equal best one. Big Mech and Mega Armor, Big Mech with shock attack gun model only. During the declared battle formation step, the bearer can be attached to flash kits. And each time model of the bearer's unit makes a range attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. So 35 points to put a model that would not have been able to otherwise join that unit to that unit, similar to Squad Leader. But in addition, you give the full unit re-rolls to hit. So this is giving you back bad ruck, and I highly suggest if someone rocks up and their big mech is just Captain Bad Ruck, just nod, say fair enough, mate, go on with your way. Let's go.
Man, I'm literally going to an event this weekend where I'm considering doing exactly that because I just want to put him on battlefield again.
Yeah,
he's just it's such a. I mean, Bad Ruck. I'm sure people played against him. It's absurd. You got to use it in Overwatch. Now it's even better because you're doing it with reroll 4s instead of reroll 5s.
Correct.
Plus, you get all the benefits of the Big Mech and Mega Armor, or you get a shock attack on rerolling it. It's incredible. Can't speak highly enough.
Yeah, it's auto take territory for me for this. All right, Rhys Cunningham, 15 points, Orc model only. After both players have deployed their army, select up to 3 Orc units from your army and redeploy them. All the same usual terms and conditions are there for this one. You know, going back to Strategic Reserve, regardless of how many you have in Strat Reserve, is totally a viable thing. 15 points isn't a huge amount for this ability, but this isn't one I see get taken that often. Do you take it?
I actually do. And the reason is because the points, I usually like having, and kind of the play patterns I take, is I like having 2 tank buster units in Strat Reserve, and then like 1 combat threat that I can ingress. And that's like a break a unit with a boss, and then 2 tank busters with shock attack guns. And the problem with that is it's over 500 points, and they're all going in Strat Reserve. So you can't actually do that unless you redeploy that unit into reserve. And what that also lets you do is put down 3 tank buster units in interesting spots in your deployment zone. Look how your opponent deploys, and then pick up the 2 that are least relevant and keep the 1 that allows you for the most dynamic plays to keep your opponent honest early in the game, while still keeping the items in reserve. So it's definitely one with which if I have the 15 points, I'm definitely going to take it.
Yeah, awesome. And last one is Grot Bomber, which I see is also bordering on auto take. It's 10 points, Warboss and Mech model only. Each time the bearers issues tactics, it can do so to a friendly Orcs infantry or Orks mounted unit within 18 instead of 6. I have seen this taken in most lists because it's 10 points and it's kind of just nice to have. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I've taken it before. I've taken it because I had 10 points, not 15 for the reason.
Yeah.
But it is definitely it's definitely a useful one. You give it to one of your shooting assets where that's starting outside the board, and you can kind of throw orders up to like Storm Boys or something like that to kind of have some early game orders, give them strength 5, maybe take out a chaff unit.
Yeah.
So it's definitely useful if you have the 10 points. It's worth trying out.
Easy. And so that's Grot Boomer, not Bomber. What is Grot Boomer?
Freudian slip off the bumpers.
Yeah. No, it's just a Grot that was born in the 1940s. All right. That's ours is the first of the stratagems for 1 command point in your command phase. 1 Orks unit from your army that is within engagement range of one or more enemy units until start of your. That is within your command range. Yep. Until start of your next command phase, add 1 to the OC of models in your unit. Very, very, very good for flipping an objective on demand to make it become yours if that is going to tip it in your favor. Nice to have, but wouldn't see it being breaking the bank. I think you can play much more proactive play patterns, as you say, that this doesn't come up that often.
I actually find it comes up quite a bit.
Nice.
Interestingly. So a lot of times with Orks, you have a lot of trucks, right? And trucks are OC2. And in Ork games, your stuff is going to die. But once you get into the WOG turn, your trucks are effectively immortal because your opponent doesn't have time to deal with them. And by the time they do, they don't have the stuff to deal with them, right? But a lot of times that also is true for your opponent's transports, right? Because you're trying to kill the contents and stuff like that, not working on transport. So you have the ability now to say your truck out OCs a Rhino for the rest of the game. You want an objective, and you win that expansion objective, and that's super relevant. It comes up a lot.
That is very big. All right, next one is Fight Proper for 1 CP. It's in the fight phase. Orcs infantry Orc mounted unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Select either sustained hits 1 or lethal hits until the end of the phase. Melee weapons equipped on models in your unit have the selected ability. Nice to have again.
Yeah, it's
how do you feel about this one? And where do you find uses for it? I'm assuming Breaker Boys being in the list that you're taking.
Oh yeah, Breaker Boys. I mean, I'll use it if I don't have a plan for my CP like reserved for next turn. And I just want to make sure that an activation that should get across the line definitely gets across the line.
Yeah.
And that's, Breaker Boy, sometimes a Storm Boy unit on a chaff unit, stuff like that. Comes up fairly often, but I would say it's more of a tool to use, not a regular kind of.
Yeah. All right. Tactical Retreat 1 CP. Your movement phase just after an Orcs unit from your army falls back. That Orcs unit to the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. So the best version of that stratagem in the game. I would have liked it if it was just one or the other for Orcs because surprisingly, you have a lot of units that both want to shoot and charge in this army.
Yeah. This detachment this stratagem makes the detachment work.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so powerful to have the ability to push people with that flash kid unit, or hit them with or have somebody tag your tank busters, for example, and you just be able to walk backwards and blast them to death. No pun intended with the blast. It's so powerful. It's so good. Yeah, I think it's one which I use. It's the most common stratagem I'm using in any given game for sure.
Yeah. All right, Crunch and Descent for 1 CP. Your charge phase just after a Storm Boys unit from your army ends a charge move. That's Storm Boys unit. Select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of your unit and then roll 1d6 for each model in your unit that is within engagement range of that enemy unit. For each 4+, you do a mortal. So 1 CP to have the jump back intercessor ability, essentially.
Yeah, it's great. Again, the guy, I need to take out somebody like Cypher or something like that, or some character that's just like a little bit harder than a Storm Boy unit should get to. This tips him over the edge. You can advance into him, not have to worry about throwing that grenade now. You do it in
correct.
combat. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly right. Because, of course, you can't advance in grenade. And so a lot of the time, on your war turn, you won't be throwing a grenade. And so this is a way to get that back. All right, 1 CP onto the next. Your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit falls back, 1 Orcs unit from your army that was within engagement range of that enemy unit at the start of the phase. Your unit can make a normal move of up to 6. Nice.
Yeah, this one's really cool. I find that what actually ends up happening is I'm worrying about my opponent about it the entire game, and so it never actually gets activated, but it does force them to play in interesting ways.
It does.
The fact that you can fall back into a transport, the fact that you can fall back if somebody sequences their movements wrong and then they fall back with the unit and you can jump behind a wall suddenly, that's huge. If somebody falls back too early and you can then go in a position to move block the rest of their assets, all that's incredibly powerful, right? So,
make an objective that they thought was safe unsafe, and now they have to redirect their entire game plan to try and remove, possibly a Y unit that's, gone in deep and tagged a bunch of things. And now, you're flipping an objective unless they reroute all their damage that wanted to go into, long range threats into just clearing and, securing their home field.
And you can also spend a CP, give yourself extra OC, then spend this CP, jump onto that objective, and suddenly the math is weird. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, last one, Dead Sneaky for 1 CP. End of your opponent's fight phase. 1 unit of commandos or stormboys from your army that is not within engagement range. 1 of enemy units, chuck it back into your strat reserve. This one is cute. I don't see it as holding up to the rest because, surprisingly, you don't have that many commandos or stormboys in this army. And this army was predicated on commandos and stormboys, as in I think that's what they envisioned. They envisioned that blood axe, style from the lore. But it turns out this is the tank busters and breakers and flash kits detachment. Who would have thought?
Yeah, this is a nice one to have in the back of your pocket, for sure. But I find that a lot of times the stormboys are the guys that are activating first or are important assets to be able to have in a WOG turn to mitigate a fight first or a heroic or something, because they're able to kind of reach out and touch things that might be in positions to kind of mess with your WOG turn. And what that means is that they often can't afford to be making 9-inch charges from reserve. But it's useful to have for sure in the event that you play in a scenario where you aren't needing to use them like that. And now you can use them to kind of jump around, do actions, totally reposition. That's really useful. Again, with that commando unit, it's kind of interesting, right? You can just pull that whole unit with the beast boss off, put it down somewhere else, which is pretty cool. But I think it's another one of those things where you tell your opponent about it, and then they have to screen your backfield to respect the turn one. If you're going second, and that's another. It's nice to have kind of that force your opponent to play around things.
I also really like it in conjunction with because one of the missions that's always been a problem for Orks is Purge. You find yourself always you find a lot of the time you can win that hold more game, but then you kind of going tit for tat because a lot of the time they're getting a kill more on you. Whereas this just like when you have those scraggly bits of units left, you can just kind of keep them safe and kind of strangle out their kill more, hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean also it's not as relevant now, but you could pull a Stormboy unit up into reserve and have that secret mission option available to you at the end of the game, right?
Yeah,
they are battle line. So
exactly right. All right, that brings us to the end of the content for the Tactical Brigade. So time for us to talk about how good it is. And out of 10, my man, speaking on behalf of yourself and all Ork players out there, how happy are you with this detachment?
Oh, this is a 10 out of 10. I mean, it gets everything you want. They managed to kind of navigate that like path between it being too good and it being very good, and I think they really landed on the very good side. Maybe the bad rookie rolls is a bit too good, but they can fix that with some points, I think. But the the fact that they added some limitations, like it doesn't work on vehicles.
Yep.
You can't have mega knobs with cover and stealth, and like little things like that kind of really help take a lot of the edges that could have existed on this that make this like totally busted go away, which is awesome, right? Because you don't want to have a detachment. As much as it's fun to play with an incredibly absurd busted detachment, you know that what's going to happen is you worry at least what's going to happen is an overcorrection that then sends that really cool detachment into a place where you don't want to play it anymore. So you wanted to kind of hit that sweet spot out the gate, and I think they really did that.
Yeah, I agree. And what's always interesting to me is that they managed to make a shooting detachment work without a single shooting damage increasing stratagem. I find that as being like the most telling thing. So the detachment rule and like 2 enhancements or 1 enhancement is enough to make a shooting archetype work for Orks without having like a strat for rerolls to wound or rerolls to wound on objectives, without having a even the sustained and lethal that you have here is just for fight phase. So like it's pretty impressive really that they managed to do this, and with pretty much having just utility stratagems, they still managed to make a strong shooting archetype detachment. It's very impressive.
And I think that speaks a lot to kind of the Ork shooting data sheets, right? Like they were all just kind of just like on the edge of being like actually something that you want to use, right? Like flash kit units are you'll see them, but you're not like taking them for shooting. Old tank buses used to be terrible. The new ones, I've tried them in other detachments as well. They're still solid, but they're significantly worse, right? If you go against somebody with stealth and your infantry are hitting on 6s, then it's like, what are we doing here, right? But now, with the +1 to hit, suddenly you're hitting on 5s, and you have enough volume. We're hitting on 5s, even though that target is still really solid. And so now you're actually able to rely on these shooting units to do interesting things, and in semi-reliable ways. You're still flipping coins, but that's great for Orks, right? I'm happy to be in 4s. I'm loving it. So, it's really cool.
Nice. All right, and last question. In the competitive tier list from D tier all the way up to S tier, where do you see Tactical Brigade?
I think Tactical Brigade is one of the 3 best armies in the game. I don't think it's the best army, but I would say it's probably an S tier, given that, that evaluation. But I also think a lot of armies are a lot closer. Like the delta between S and A is a lot closer than ever used to.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I find myself putting less things in S tier, because things are so close. And S tier, for me, needs to be head and shoulders above everything else. So I have Tactical Brigade as like one of the only A+ tier armies in the game.
I would agree with that, for sure.
Yeah, because there's not that huge gap between it and everything else. And I do believe we're all going to get knocked down a little bit once the best Eldar players in the world start getting out there in the meta as well.
Yeah, the army is sweet. It's another one which I think they nailed for what it's worth. But I think it'll be good to see it played. There's a lot of skill expression there.
Exactly right. And on that note, we are going to tune out of this part 2. But Brian, you have a chance to plug anything if you would like.
Just want to give a shout out to my friends over at StatCheck, as well as my friends at Fireside, and just say, go check out what they're doing. It's great stuff. It's great content, and I might be doing some Fireside content in the near future. So
hell yeah. Tune into some Brian by the Fireside. Sounds good. On that note, we are out here. We're going to go record part 2. You can find that over at Patreon at Art of War Down Under. Hope you enjoy the song at the end of the show. Thank you very much to everyone who showed their support so far. Thank you to everybody who has signed up recently on Patreon. Really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. And thank you so much. Take care, and we'll see you soon.